Remind me, what is the interview about?
So first of all, very good afternoon. Thank you very much for helping me and helping the university.
Give me 1 minute. Give me? Just record first 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Go to video. What is the video? Just 1 minute only, huh? Only 60 seconds.
I press this button to start.
Hold. This is video. And you press this button to start. Look.
And to stop as well. The same button.
Yeah. 160 seconds only.
60 seconds.
Just be here. And don't move. Be here.
Oh,
wait.
Sorry. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here, for helping me, helping the university to give us some tips on their design. This will not only help me on my thesis project, all other students working on this, and all others designing hotels in the near future of the university. This will be our help.
Akash, it's a pleasure. First of all, I hope you gave my regards to your father. He's one of the biggest developers in India, so it is a pleasure to work. And I know one thing, that you have worked with Rogers and Foster's and Norman Foster's and all, and it will help when you will implement. I think one day your father might implement some of these designs in India. So it's a pleasure for me, and I'm always available for such kind of discourses, academic, intellectual discourses on design. That's my very great amount of love that I do it for sake of posterity. I think that it's a frozen music. Design is a frozen music, and we should really, architecture interprets like anything else. It unveils the hidden beauties of life. And without people like you, the architects, you cannot really bring real beauty out of stone and cement and mortar. When cement and mortar changes into something extraordinarily beautiful, that's what an architect does. For example, a beautician makes a girl beautiful, a man who is interested in designing beautiful planes, he does beautiful planes. You architects are very important in the world, and our civilization is recorded by the architects, in the sense that the greatest signs of our civilizational leap forward are based on the greatest things that we have made. For example, when we look at the seven wonders of the world, when we look at the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, when we look at the Great Wall of China, when we look at different aspects of our human civilizational history, you can imagine that most of these have come through people who have been doing a great amount of conversion of stones and mortar into
people like you who fund that. Obviously, you have
vision is a very small thing. Vision is a small thing. Vision is something that we have to less give a credit, in the sense. Capital, just now I was writing, capital is always looking for opportunity. So capital is available, and capital has got its own nuances and its own interpretations. So capital will find anything that will make money. It's in a point package. So basically, if there was an improper design, if we were not able, as civilization, human civilization, if we were not able to convert the stones into proper sphinx and Taj Mahals of the world, we would be very much orphaned. We don't want to live as orphan species. We want to live as one of the most sentient and extraordinary species that we have in the universe. So you people have got a very big role to play on that. So it's my pleasure that I am talking to a top architect, one of the best universities in UK, I think.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have been ranked one in the UK by Good Universities Guide and the Times Guide for consecutively 8 years now. Both of them. Yeah. And it's the greatest pleasure to have you. It's because of people like you who do give this intellectual input, people like you who actually achieved it in practicality, that it actually helps us to achieve or be a university that we are.
Thank you very much.
So thanks a lot for being here, for helping us. I would like to start with some questions passed on by Mr. Martin Glenhill, the Director of Studies at Bath Architecture. What is, in a place like London, what is the guest to staff ratio? What is it that you provide? What do you think is ideal?
guest to staff ratio would be say, so every 10 rooms or what?
Like,
see, it depends on what kind of hotel you're creating. If you're creating something like a hotel in Dubai, geographics today is defining, and the cost of employment is defining the hospitality industry. So in UK, if you look at it, the cost of hospitality industry is the major cost is employees, whereas in Dubai the major cost is not employees. You see my point? They have a very poor employment values in terms of giving due regard to the people who work for them. In UK and in European Union and in Western countries, there is a very good regard, and minimum wages are ensured, and on top of it, people have to be respected for their holidays, and as such, employment is one of the major costs in hospitality. So unlike Dubai, where you can have totally different perspective, because you hire people on $200 or $300 a month and let them work for 14 hours a day, which is totally inhuman. Here you have worked for 8.5 hours, maximum half hour is a break, and then for that you have to pay a salary which is commensurate with their experience, and there's a lot of competition. So staff to room ratio has to be very sensitively allocated. You know, in Dorchester it's quite different. Because it all depends on how much you can charge for the room. If you're developing something like Dorchester, again it is on the Park Lane, that's a different thing. If you're developing something, Raphael, which is quite a good 5-star hotel in Battersea, it's quite different, because you will not be able to charge £500 a room. You can only charge £150 a room here. So naturally, my staffing requirements and my staffing ratios will be very different from somebody who's charging £500 a room. You see, and the expectation levels are different. So technology nowadays have come into play. I know it's not that simple anymore that you can put and design. You have to look at each project very individually. You have to study the location of the project. Where is it located? You have to, the architects have to put into it the economics of the project also. You know, what is the economics of the project? How much people are able to afford? If you design a project with the humongous staff to ratio to rooms, and then you cannot fund it, because at the end of the day, if the location is not right and the geographical area is not correct, there can be so many rooms in Park Lane or in the most expensive areas. But you should be able to define it by various other factors, and hence you see this has become superfluous. This amount or this whole issue has to be seen in context of. They cannot be. I cannot give you. Oh, there in my state project specific. I cannot tell you. No, do 10 room, 2 staff for each room. So you have 200 rooms, 400 staff.
It's very.
No, and on top of it, technology has come into play. See, now like housekeeping, with the technology, with the micrometer that we have, that each individual room is managed by VDA technology. So we come to know which room is vacant, which room has what temperature, which room needs immediate attention, which room is leaving at what time. All this has been now centralized under one database. So you have to go to the VDA technology and study it. That VDA technology has helped hoteliers a lot. Now, not everyone has it. Not everyone has it. It's a state-of-art technology. So, but you can see in our hotel, and before you leave, you should check it.
I've stayed in the hotel, and I'm not the exact ratios, but it's an excellent place.
But if you before you go, you should check it out. I will ask Taki to show you around that how this technology works. So then, staff ratio is affected by that. You get my point? If you have no technology, then you will have to send somebody to the room to find out if the room has been checked out, who has checked out, who has checked in. See, all this is now automatically handled, and by touch card, like you have this card going in the buses and all. You just touch it, and you come to know the whole how many times the room has been entered, who entered the last. So before it was quite intensive. Now technology has reduced the role of employers and employees in the sense that it is very technology focused, and hence you will have to deal with this situation in a different manner. Your director, please tell them that this has to be very specific for the hotel. This finds the core of the design. You see my point? Because design, you cannot conceive a design without having a proper economics of the project. Do you agree with me or no?
I agree.
You cannot
this
just
is very enriching, and I mean, I had stayed at the hotel, and I'm not aware of the exact ratios as you say, but the service is spectacular.
Yeah.
One thing.
But then the
and I
point-
agree. It has to be project specific. It's a study on its own.
It's study on its
not
own.
a simple
You have to see that,
mindset.
okay, somebody comes and asks you for a design of a hotel, you have to go through this whole exercise. That how much the economics of the hotel is, you have to coordinate your design, specification, this particular design, with what is the cash flow projections of the investor. If he is putting a 500 pound a room, and then you see that where exactly it is located, then based on that, it is in itself a big study.
That was very good.
And also, you see, I could have easily answered or two, so then you'll move to the next question.
Yeah.
The reason
This
of
is-
this
it's
whole
not a
dialogue
yes.
is that we are not, that's the reason that I don't like to give interviews where I am giving just a small answer. I want to give an interview where I have to able to explain what is the background of the whole design.
I really appreciate that. That is very important.
And you know, by profession, I'm a civil engineer, you know that.
Oh wow!
I'm a civil engineer.
It's incredible to have you. I mean,
As a civil engineer,
you're the best,
then I became an
person to
economist, and
experience.
so I'm a civil engineer by profession. So, and I have very close coordination with the architects, very close all the time.
I've been aware of that. You have meetings with architects. They have the amazing project which you were funding and all went to link the other side of Chelsea.
And we have already got
socialist movement. And so, what is the number of guests that can stay in a full occupancy?
in the full occupancy. If you have like in this particular hotel,
Yes.
like it basically when you have a 100-room hotel, for example, so your full occupancy should take into account that there will be between 200 to 225 people. They will bring the children in. You put some extra beds. If you have, it also depends on the size of the room. Since we have generous size of the rooms. When we encourage family-oriented hotels, so children come in, and therefore we put some extra beds. Plus, if your restaurants and spa is working at the same time, and you have other parties going on in your function rooms, there can be another 200 or 300 guests on a weekend. I think that will be around, your restaurant, if it's a 100-seat restaurant on a weekend, if it is very popular, the outside people do come in, and that brings, and spa, outside people come in our case. Also, in our case, Nirvana Lounge, different kind of parties take place, and hence there is another 200 or 300 guests at one given time. 500 people are in the hotel premises. But the rooms, you can imagine that it flows very well. But of course, it is usually when you design a room, you should look for at least 3 to 4 people on a weekend on each room. If you have functions room, if you have restaurants, you see my point? Something minimum of that level. If you have 400-room hotel, then there will be functions room, there will be 500 people function on a weekend. So you design for the maximum, unfortunately. You have to do that because you cannot design for 100 people and then end up having 500 people and then you have no exit for the fire. You actually design your fire exits for 500 people because at that point there are 500 people. The weakest link in anything is the weakest link is the strength of the chain is defined by the weakest link. If your design is for the optimized level of people who are inside the hotel at one given time.
This is a very big hotel. What are the challenges involved with? I mean, there is obviously an economical risk involved. There is opportunity as well as
No,
risk.
but the biggest
and then
challenge
there
is in
management.
any hotel. So the biggest challenge, I tell you honestly, is you cannot develop a hotel until you don't have basic economics. There's a book written on Battersea and Chelsea. There's a book written, the difference between Battersea and Chelsea. In that book, it defines that a hotel in Battersea would never work. It is very far from West End, though it's only 3 miles. But it says that location for a 5-star hotel is very important. And that
You
is,
clearly defied that.
defied that. And that was a book.
Success.
Can you imagine, Akash, that it was a very strange incident with me, actually. That day, on 19th of December, I was opening the hotel 18th or 19th, and on that particular day, all of a sudden, 4 days before that, as I was opening, and you see, we are our own operators. The file is our brand. So what happens that I decided that okay, maybe I missed something, and I was working with since I've been designing hotels for all my life and constructing hotels all my life. So I said maybe I've missed something. So I just went out and try to find if I can define myself. On 14th of December night, I just took out on Amazon.com, and I'm a great buyer of books on Amazon.com, and I went and searched for a guide on new hotel openings, and I found a book which was a great book, and in that review of the book, it was written that it's better to buy not this book but another book which is 100 Tips for the Hoteliers. So I bought that book on 14th December night. I ordered it 14th December night. I'm opening on 18th December morning. Okay, and so all of a sudden on 18th December, on 16th December, I was delivered the book by Amazon.com. 100 Tips for the Hoteliers, and I got it on 16th. On 7th, I was really busy. I did not look at it. On 17th night, as I came home at 2 o'clock in the night after having a dinner late, and the book was on my bedside. I looked at it, I opened it, and I read. I have an attention deficit disorder in the sense that I cannot read the book from start to beginning. I have to start and then go in the middle and then go in the end and then come back. So I finally, after 20 minutes of going to the books, I came to the point, page 3. And in page 3, on point number 3 was location, location, location. 100 tips for the hoteliers. And in it was written that don't ever open a hotel in Battersea. Although Battersea is opposite Chelsea, but don't ever open a 5-star hotel, it will fail. And another was in Queens, because it's opposite Manhattan. People are fooled by the fact that only a river divides Chelsea and Battersea. It's only 100 meters, and I had no idea to make a bridge in those days. So basically, next morning I said, "What's happening, man?" On 14th of December, I'm searching for a book, and I found this book all of a sudden, and by chance I come out, and here it is, 18th December. Tomorrow morning I'm opening my hotel. I only one booking so far, and the book is saying that the name is there. You can find it. 100 tips for hoteliers. 100 tips for hoteliers. And point number 3. So I have not yet called the author so far. I'll call, because define was you don't ever challenge established wisdom. You see, you challenge it only if you are successful. Who cares? Who cares? You're successful. You saved your nap. Bottom line is this, you move on to the next thing. If I start telling him, oh, listen, I defied you and all, what advantage do I get? Yes, he gave me an insight that I did not make the mistakes what other people were making. I made sure that from day one, I cater for the needs and requirements of the area. I did not ever think that I'm in West End. I've never thought that my hotel restaurant should cater for the needs. I made it a cosmopolitan place, so that I was 80 miles away from Hampshire on A3, but I'm 1 million miles away mentally from Chelsea. This is my famous saying, that mentally people don't come to the south. South of the river is always considered as an area, although it's only 1 mile. Just a bridge, but Chelseans will never come here. But we are only 7. So I always thought that I will work on A3 corridor, and on A3 corridor there are 15 million people living there. You see my point? So instead of becoming cocky about it, that here I am, I'm defying and I've made it successful. No, I was very humble, and I made humility my cornerstone strategy. And I said, okay, good enough. If that's the case, let me define my priorities right. And I just concentrated on the Hampshire corridor and A3 corridor, that I'm going to get people, and from Wales through A4 into Wandsworth Bridge, into this area. And I think, and we are outside the congestion zone and all that. It all worked perfectly well. So you see, the point is this: your negatives that you are thrown in your life, you turn them around and convert them into positives. That's what life is all about. So when you design a project, you have to see the location is one of the most important things. And as I've explained you, I went through a real difficult time because on 18th morning, but that did not give me even it only gave me goosebumps, but never gave me any kind of a threat of existence. I said, life is like that. It sends you twists, twirls, and googlies, and you've got to play them well. It's a constant struggle. It is not like you are going to get your answers right, or you're going to get everything T's crossed and I dotted. No, don't ever go for perfection. Even in a design, never go for perfection. Design is always evolving, and a design has its 100 parameters. you got to work with these 100 parameters into consideration. Any design that does not take into consideration the economics, the viability, the location, the demographics, the geographics. See, it is a connected world, and hence your design briefs have to change also, in my personal opinion, because the world is no more Indian or no more Chinese or no more Russian. London is a cosmopolitan city. UK has become a city that is a country that attracts